Welcome everybody to Remote Talks. Today I am joined by Sondre. Sondre is the CEO of SafetyWing. Well, Sondre, I'll let you introduce yourself, but in particular, SafetyWing. What is it? What does it? Why?
SafetyWing is building a global social safety net for remote workers and teams. And we offer today health insurance for nomads and also remote teams and workers worldwide.
That's great. What was there before SafetyWing? If you wanted to, why did you start this in the first place?
Started this, so I ran a freelancer platform called Superside. Today it's still active, and we wanted to provide benefits for the freelancers on that platform. But we needed to buy it in a way that was worldwide because they were spread out worldwide, and nobody offered it the way we needed to buy it, which was global, but also we needed to make it easy to buy, like ideally an API, and flexible to turn on and off. And that was sort of the problem discovery moment. And because I had previously worked with the Norwegian social safety net, I thought after trying for a year to get someone else to start this company, we said, okay, someone has to build this. There's this infrastructure that needs to be built for remote work, and the social safety net is a big piece. And of course, you're working on the other big piece, and that's that was the genesis for the company.
Is there, now that you've been doing this for a while, is it clear to you why no one did this before? Is it exceptionally hard, or is there something that makes this so unattractive to start with, maybe?
Yeah, it is. It is surprisingly difficult. So I think every company has like their complexity. So the previous one was not that, like, it was easy in some ways, but it was operationally difficult. This one it's the legal barrier to entry roughly, and the financial barrier to entry as well. So just to get to a product to market, you need to figure out licenses on multiple levels in all countries in order to make a product that is simple. And you also need backing of like a reinsurance company at least. And those kind of proves a big barrier to entry, because if you have a vision that is different from what existed before, you have to persuade these very conservative actors to go along with it. And I think this is why we see so few startups in this area.
Yeah, it seems incredibly complex, which is why we are a customer of yours, in part. Who are the kind of people that your product, because you started out needing this for freelancers, but do you see this today as well? We insure entire families. Is it specifically people that live as nomads, or who really is that person that you work with?
The person we work with is the remote worker, is I think the best description of it. Nomads is more a subset of remote workers. If you think about it in the product adoption lifecycle, I myself lived a bit nomadic in the sense of working remotely and living abroad. We started with that group partly because we knew it well, but partly because it's an early adopter. A lot of things that Nomads does today, everyone else does a few years later. And we've seen that across multiple product categories. So it was a place to start. However, the user we have in mind in the long run is that most companies will be remote, and everyone who works in them will be part of an international workforce that have to have this global infrastructures to support. And that's what we're going to provide on the social safety net part.
So over the last year or two, right, the whole world is starting to work remotely. Have you seen particular growth anywhere in the world? Any particular locations that have been booming or otherwise very interesting?
Yeah, so we are seeing some countries that were early in vaccination grow. People I believe, are eager to get out, and we see that's one area of growth we see. As for remote teams and remote workers, that's a pretty broad-based growth, where you see it, for us across countries and fairly spread out. And we haven't been able to discern any particular patterns yet, with the exception that, of course, we see some of those countries that have a lot of people working only remotely, like the Philippines, being kind of like a bit of ahead of the curve on their end. But this is a worldwide phenomenon.
And so for you, I'm personally very curious about this. If an individual that has maybe citizenship in one country moves to another country, which I think is happening more and more, especially now the remote work is getting bigger. Is this a particular difficult situation for you as an insurer, or do you have to think about this in a particular way?
Well, it's not. It would typically be extremely difficult. So even if you're in the US, even moving to another state would require you to undergo everything from the ground up, because all the infrastructure and the insurances are only legal in one state, and so it is between countries typically. We have built our policy from the bottom up to be global, so it's not an issue for us. So one of the benefits we can offer that a regular kind of national insurance provider can't is that if you move, or if you're abroad for periods of time, you have the same coverage as you do at home. And you see some companies like Spotify, when they went remote, they announced it like that. They didn't announce it as a going full remote. They said work from anywhere. And they're working to kind of set up the rest of their company to function in that way as well. And that is a big perk. As people work remotely, they are more mobile. So moving, if you work abroad, moving home to your family for parts of the year, or like to a summer place part of the year, that is now much more possible.
Do you encounter particular problems or challenges with local governments? Because at least from our experience, it seems like every country invented its own set of rules, and you just have to live and work with that in some way. How is this for you? Because exactly you're saying, you're trying to do a truly global thing and you have the same coverage everywhere. I can imagine that being incredibly difficult.
So the difference between us and you, we both are in that area where we are in deeply regulated places, and we want to make a simple product that works globally. And so we have to deal with the differences between countries. And like you said, in insurance, it is also somewhat invented locally, and there are differences between countries. And the worst situations, which you might have as well, is that there are some instances where something is, you have to have it in one jurisdiction like the EU, and then it's illegal in another like the US. And that's sort of the edge case there.
What is that thing that is illegal
by
in the
and
US?
large, we are able to find, we look for the things that are legal across categories, so that we can make something that is legal everywhere. And that is, broadly being successful. It is possible, but it is sort of part of our product development process, essentially.
What is that one thing that is illegal in the US but mandatory in the EU? I'm just very curious.
It's a type of discounting.
Not as exciting as I thought, as I hoped it would be. It's not some benefit that you can.
It's not exciting. It's a specific type of discounting.
So what about your own team? Like, how distributed are you right now, and what is the plan going into the future as your company grows?
Yeah, so our team is growing quickly. We are, we over 50 on the full team, sort of 80 in total across 60 countries, and we're an extremely international team. But it works out really well because, of course, a lot of the people who work in our, they grew up on the internet, and so there is this shared cultural reference that comes from that. But I do find that we have to. It is more important for a remote company to have a worthwhile mission and values, and so because people have different contexts that they come from. But it is going really well, and we have a remarkable team. Actually, it is a lovely benefit to be able to hire from anywhere, is that you can find these like really rare people to work on your team.
Have you ever been together as a whole team in person?
Yes, so we do team gatherings 3 to 4 times a year, break during COVID. We do have the plan to resume in the autumn, conditional, of course, of that being safe at the time. I mean, these things are being a bit hard to predict, but so that is a key part. We do those 1 week, and we have a great setup, and it's not just sort of like team building activities. We try to put a lot of stuff that is like long-term planning in those weeks, and it's been a great way for us to work remotely, to also have those meetings.
Oh, that's great. That's really, really nice. We haven't done it yet with remote since COVID started, really. A few here and there, but now Yeah, I think there's still too little vaccinations for us to like get a big back to get to organize something really big to get together. But hopefully somewhere next year we might do the same thing. And so, you know, as you're, you know, working in the benefits space, is there something around, you know, benefits and compensation for remote workers that you know, do you have a particular philosophy around that, or have you seen something surprising there?
Well, I suppose our philosophy is that you know, we think that that the norm should, and I'm pretty sure shortly will be, that you're expected to have the same benefits for someone you hire locally as internationally. You know, we're in this odd situation now where even among big companies, they kind of think that they can have completely different set of norms and rules and benefits for international employees. But that is definitely in the middle of shifting. And so that's roughly how I think about it. I do think that some benefits have to be reimagined. Some is a lot more useful when you do it international, and some are a lot less useful when you do it international. Obviously, anything that is in office becomes completely useless, and have to be replaced, like things like office stipends, and of course, when it comes to those like big benefits like health and retirement, the issue is usually the international part. Are you able to offer the same worldwide? And before you had services like remote.com, you know, almost everyone, even the most serious employees, would go with a contractor model. And part of that was because it's so difficult to do anything else. But now with you know, your service being it's starting to make that easier. And for serious employers, at least they have a realistic option that isn't an impossible barrier of difficulty.
So, and then as one of my last questions, like, is there anything surprising about building a product like yours? Like, again, like I think very few businesses have, if any, have tried to build, you know, a global health insurance platform. What has surprised you most about building this?
So one thing that has surprised me a little is that so many insurance policies are hard to read, and it has good reasons. It's because, you know, especially in common law countries, you have these phrases which have documented precedent, and the insurance policy is like a collection of those. But the underlying things it's trying to say is often very simple, and it could almost be said to be programmatic. Like there are like events, and then there are conditions, and then there are limits. But you're kind of finding yourself living in this history. And here is an area where I think there is like possibility to make great improvements in the future. So that is one small surprise. I also find that the entire insurance industry is like one of the least digitized. It must be. It is changing, but there are significant parts of the insurance industry, both in the sort of distribution and product side, which exist like almost as if like pre-software era, not just pre-internet, but like pre-digital. And I wouldn't have guessed that. So that was a surprise to me. I would have guessed that it was behind, but not that it was not to the degree that it is. And this explains a lot about what is odd about the insurance industry. It is just a very deep and broad need for renewal and becoming digital, and but it's a very conservative industry, and they're very bound in rules and regulations, which has made it sort of a bit of a laggard. So a lot is going to change in the decade ahead.
It's very, very interesting. I can imagine your team then has to deal with a significant amount of paperwork and wet signatures and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds very familiar. Sondre, thank you very much for being on Remote Talks. Where can people find you and the SafetyWing on the internet?
Yes, so you can go to SafetyWing.com, where you can find remote health insurance for remote individuals and teams, as well as nomad insurance. We also have a podcast and a great book we're working on called Building Remotely, where we're trying to codify knowledge for companies, startups who want to build remotely. So recommend checking out that as well.
Thanks very much.